Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for having me here today. We're together on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And for those who celebrate, happy second day of Lunar New Year, Gong Hei Fat Choi. What a morning we've had. Congratulations to Bridget and the Board of Trade for the very ballsy decision to go ahead with the 3% growth goal. I like it. I look forward to working with you on it. I'm glad you've moved forward with that despite the very uncertain times we've been hearing about. Very much enjoyed, as always, hearing JF speak, and I always take away so much learning, so really a pleasure to get to be here. And I love the guarded optimism. I think I needed a little injection of that this morning, so thank you very much. Also to the panelists, I really enjoyed that discussion, and my neck's a bit sore from nodding. You know, there were a lot of things said there that were just simple truths that we need to address. And it's not always easy to have that discussion with the minister sitting in the room, so speaking truth to power, I like it. Well done. So I'm going to share a little bit about myself quickly, and I know Bridget gave you the quick overview, which is I come from the tech sector, but I have a degree in international relations from McGill, and then I studied anti-racism social work, and then I went on to study business, and I did a couple years at law school as well. So I've got a really varied background, and I'm an entrepreneur for 20 years, but also just by nature, which means I'm a relentless optimist, which helps. I joined government in 2020. I'm not a real politician. And what I mean by that is not super partisan. You know, I went into politics because I really care about BC's economy. I kid you not. That's literally why I went into politics. I went into politics because for decades, I had been advocating to many people in this job about the opportunities for growth in our technology sector that no one seemed to see. Either side, doesn't matter, you pick the party. No one seemed to see it. It's been driving me crazy. There's so much opportunity. And when I first joined, the reason I joined politics actually, I'll tell you this story, I was lobbying John Horgan, and he's such a character, I miss that man, who said to me, and I'm going to swear here, so pardon me, but he said to me, Bailey, you're such a pain in my ass. Why don't you just run and fix it from the inside? Right? That was his invitation, and it got me thinking, that's interesting, because I have sat in the office of so many finance ministers and not gotten what I want. Well, here I am. We're going to get some stuff done. Yeah. I want to, thank you. I really want to thank David Eby. It's not easy to take someone who's been pretty aggressive on the needs to support the business community and plunk them into this role. But he's done it. And he's told me why. Premier Eby, he's a man of deep conviction, and I respect that so much. He's come into this role with so many important goals in his mind about fixing housing and doing better for people, and has really driven those agendas. And I've been knocking on the door saying, we've also really got to make sure that we shore up our economy and we make sure our businesses are strong. We can't pour from an empty cup. Businesses are our partner. They're our partner. When our economy is doing well, then we can take care of everything. When our economy is not doing well, people struggle. We've got to focus on the economy. Yep, we do, and here's the ways we do it. We've got to do more. We've got to do more. And you'll hear Premier Eby say that recently, in the past election, he had a near-death experience. That's how he describes it. And we came back and really talked about areas where we had strength and we were succeeding, and areas where we had room to improve. It's important to do that. You do that in your businesses, and we do it in government. And an area where we have room to improve is how we work with you, how we deliver on the things you're asking us to deliver on, how we fix permitting. Job number one. Everything that you heard on that panel is priority number one. This is the work we have to do together. We've got to. You know, investment, we want it back in British Columbia, exactly to Cheryl's point, back here where it belongs, and we're going to make that happen. When we're in a situation where it takes longer to get a permit than it does to build the mine, we've got a problem, right? We've got a problem. Todd, I really appreciate you sharing your perspective on the public service, but I'm going to take that on a little bit. So when I came from business and joined government, can't tell you how different it is. This is a deeply complex place. Ooh, Nelly. But I also had, I'm going to embarrass myself, so forgive me, but I also had a bias that I brought. And Todd, I don't know if you have this bias. You've got some direct experience. But my bias was public service is slow. They work little hours. They kind of, don't do enough. It's not like us in the private sector that are go, go, go. And I can't tell you how wrong I was. I have had amazing experiences with our public sector folks. Some of them have some shackles on them. Sure, there's probably some that maybe aren't delivering everything they should. I haven't met them, frankly. I mean, I'm telling you, frankly, I haven't. I have met people that are so devoted to service, that are really competent and who want to do this work. And there's some work to unshackle them, right? And some of that is in the political side to make sure that we're driving forward. And there's also work to incentivize. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. When I was asked to do this job, I knew that the Premier had asked me, I want you to tackle this deficit. I want you to get us on a road to balance. And I thought, that's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. I'm happy to do it. I'm going to work on it. We're going to get this done. It's important. No idea that we were going to walk into the level of uncertainty that was introduced to us on November 25th of last year with a threat of 25% tariffs. But what's important to know is that we were already on the pathway. We already have to do this work. If the issue of tariffs disappears right now, my work is almost the same, really, because we have to grow our economy for the people of British Columbia. That's what we have to do. We have to address spending within our means, like everyone else. We have to address that, and we're doing that work. It's really important to know that the teams that we have built are strong, and we're giving them different direction. Now, I'm a bit nerdy of me, but the thing that I was most excited about since I've been in politics, we're seeing in our mandate letters that on the first line to every minister's mandate letters are very clear instructions that we are going to make sure that every dollar that is being spent is landing the way it should land. We're going to review that, and we're going to be very careful on making sure that efficiency is happening the way it should. I've heard people say we need to run government like business. This is what it's about. This is what those mandate letters are driving us towards. We're looking at bringing in an efficiency review. Now, don't take this to mean there are cuts coming left, right, and center, but we've been in government for 7 years. Are the dollars landing where they should? We have to make sure they are. We have to make sure we're getting the value out of taxpayers' dollars, and that's the work that's ahead of us, and we'll find some efficiencies. So this work is going to happen regardless of whether the tariffs come in or not. It's important work. And the reason it's so important is because we need to protect the things that are important to people. We need to shore up healthcare and make sure everyone has access to a doctor. We need to continue to deliver this extraordinary workforce that comes from our amazing universities. We need to make sure that kids have fabulous experiences in their elementary schools and that we're taking care of people. We need to keep our streets safe. We need to grow our economy. That's the reason we need to do this work. So the tariffs. Gosh, I really can't add much more than what has been said, particularly by JF. We just don't know what's coming. The announcement of 25% is very significant. We've done economic modeling at the Ministry of Finance, and I'll share with you what that modeling tells us. It's not great. So, assumptions in the modeling. Assumption number one, that the tariffs come in at 25%. We don't know when. This president does use uncertainty as a tool, in my opinion. But let's say they come in on Saturday at 25%, and they stay in for the duration of that presidency to the 2028. The other assumption in our modeling is that Canada responds in kind, right, tit for tat, and that also comes in at 25% for the same duration. Given those two parameters, this is what the modeling tells us. One, $69 billion loss in GDP over that time frame to BC's economy. Two, 140,000 jobs. And three, an unemployment rate that could go to 7.1% by 2026. Shock to the economy, right? These are very, very serious numbers. And we're taking it really seriously. The Premier's led our response in three ways. The first one is really, what is the response? And you've seen some disagreement in the press in what that should be. We don't believe that this is about the borders. We believe this is about a revenue goal for domestic revenue within the United States. In my view, some very incorrect economic theory that's being applied, and but could happen, right? So the first thing we have to do is consider the response. And a Team Canada approach provides more strength in response. Now, of course, goal number one is negotiation. Of course, diplomacy is the number one goal. And that has been going on in many, many different ways. For example, directly with governors of states that are impacted, and they are many, right? There are many states where Canada is their primary trading partner. States that are red states have more influence to President Trump than states that are blue. This isn't a political decision. This is about strategic influence. It's important. The Team Canada approach may or may not have to respond with tariffs if diplomacy doesn't work. And the tariffs approach would be a match for match. So can't say what that's going to be, don't know what the tariffs are going to be, but that's the theory behind it. There's also opportunity to make decisions just within British Columbia. Do we decide to not sell American wine? Do we decide to not drink Florida orange juice? Do we decide to drink scotch instead of bourbon? We should anyways, obviously, but I mean, you know, there are bourbon lovers in the crowd, I get it. But there are things like that that we can look at, right? So the response. The second piece is strengthening, and this is why I so invite this focus on 3%. We need to strengthen our economy, and we need to do it together, and government is open to that. This is something that we can do better at. We know it. We're devoted to it. You've got a team in place that's going to do this work with you, right? Regardless of the tariffs. With the tariffs, even a bigger threat, we have to do this work. So it's strengthening the economy. It's about permitting. It's about supporting economic growth in many different sectors. And it's going to look different in different pieces depending on what the needs are. But I'll share with you a quick story, if I may. I know that Wendy from Life Sciences is in the room. And when I was in the JEDI file, I know I missed the name. I can't tell you, like, really? MinFin? Yeah, it's a downgrade. But life sciences is an interesting example. So I'm a rower. I rowed at McGill, and I've been rowing for 30 years, and too busy to row now, but I'll get back to it. I love rowing. Rowed in an 8. I've raced internationally. This beautiful thing happens when you've got 8 people of different shapes and sizes and coordination and thought patterns trying to move at exactly the infinitesimally same moment to put your oar in, to slide down the slide, and to take your oar out continuously together exactly at the same time. It's damn hard to do. 30 years of rowing, I've had it happen maybe in 3 boats, you know, like twice in each boat after years of training. I felt it happen with the life science sector. I did. I felt that flying feeling, that we're all in it, we're moving faster than anyone else feeling. And we did that because, and it's the best example I've seen so far in government, because the industry told government what needed to happen. Hey, we've got an opportunity to grow, but here's some barriers. We're not getting enough training. We need to do this, this, and this. Okay, let's do it. We built out the National Bio Training Center at BCIT. Thank you, BCIT, for your partnership. I know you're in the room. We put more money into place to make sure that that tech training is happening at high-end universities as well. The UBC has this particular program that is really focused on training bioscientists. Great. We heard that when people are trying to come out of the university with their patents and their inventions, and they want to go ahead and commercialize, really hard because you have to have all this really expensive equipment, and wet lab space is wildly expensive. Great, we worked together, we built wet lab space, both in Vancouver and Victoria. You know, other pieces, we need to ground anchor companies to keep them here in British Columbia to grow and not go elsewhere. Great, we've made major investments in stem cell and Abcellera, in Aspect Biosystems. These are examples of how we can work together to fly. And we can do this. We can do this as government and business. That's about strengthening the economy. And the third piece is about diversity. Two pieces to this. One, as you know, British Columbia has pretty significant trade exposure. When you look at our pie for trade, we are at 54% of our exports go to the US. Some of our colleagues across the country, 75% and higher, Ontario, Alberta, Quebec. What it tells you is the opportunity that we have because of where we are located and those very important person-to-person relationships that we have in our beautiful, diverse community that is British Columbia, right? I spoke recently, I see Pankesh here, Sukesh, pardon me. I spoke recently with the Indian Business Network and had the opportunity to connect with a number of different individuals who are very keen to increase export. It's part of our Indo-Canadian trade strategy. We need to do this work. This work has been here for us. We've all said it for a long, long time. Maybe sometimes it takes a, you know, never let a crisis go to waste kind of thing in order to really take advantage of the opportunities that we have. I was on a trade mission with the Premier in 2022. Japan and Korea are so hungry for our products. We've got opportunity there. We need to do that work. The second part is, and it's been talked about already this morning, how important it is to get those trade barriers down across Canada. There are benefits to us that we can unlock, and maybe this is the time that we can get that done. So those three things, our response, our strengthening, and our diversity are really how we're approaching this threat. So let's all hope it doesn't happen, right? Because things were starting to look like we were on-ramping to economic growth. I was very excited about some of the numbers that were coming in and what it meant in terms of what we can do together. So we'll counter what comes, whatever it may be. We'll prioritize taking care of people in British Columbia as we always do. And please hear my wide open invitation that this government is very keen to work with the business community to solve the barriers that we have to growth so that we can hit 3% and make sure that we're all growing and thriving together. Thanks very much.
Minister, thank you for your candor and for the listening that I think that you have demonstrated both when you were a minister at JEDI and also at the Minister of Finance. And so a lot of, I think, some promises about the way that you're going to approach a very, very difficult situation. And maybe we could start with the 3% challenge. Thank you for embracing this. We know, we do acknowledge at the Board of Trade that 3% is likely unachievable if we are dealing with 25% tariffs in this year. But it is still a very important goal and achievable because we know we've done it before. So when you look at some of the priorities that you're thinking about, whether it's speeding up permitting or getting these projects approved or adopting technology, where are some of the areas that you think in the short and medium term that could actually really spur economic growth to achieve that 3%?
Yeah, I really think there are so many. You've identified some of them. I mean, we're looking at the permitting question in terms of having a one-stop shop and looking at also where requirements are overlapping and people are having to do multiple stages. Are there ways to streamline that haven't been explored? I'm hopeful. I've seen some good things happen in the last little while. The windmill example is one. And I think also Caribou Mine was permitted in 18 months. I mean, I think that might be a record. So I am seeing some opportunity and some things happening in that space already, and there's more work to do, but the Premier's absolutely driven on this, so it'll happen. I just want to take a moment, if I can. I'm a tech geek, right? So I got to go there, but AI. And I am so bullish on AI, and not unrestricted AI, and there's many things we have to be careful with AI. But I want to share a story with you on how I see AI affecting productivity. I want to bring more AI into government, right? And I've been working with the head of the public sector to look at opportunities to do that. That'll be part of our efficiency review, is what tools can we bring in terms of technology that can support us being more efficient in our work. But I want to share a story that is from C-SPAN. You may have heard me say this before. So sometimes people feel afraid that AI is going to lead to a lot of loss of jobs. And I think it leads to change of jobs more than loss of jobs. And there's been some interesting research on this, but also I'll share a personal experience. I visited C-SPAN. I don't know if there's anyone from C-SPAN in the room today, but they do amazing work, of course, over in North Vancouver, and they build out these large vessels. They need very specialized welders that are excellent at welding stainless steel. It's a tough type of welding, I understand. My dad was a heavy-duty mechanic and taught welding. I remember as a girl, he taught at BCIT on the North Shore, people working at C-SPAN. C-SPAN has been hungry for welders from the time I was this big. And they've done everything right? They've had co-op programs. They've had programs focused on bringing more women into the trades. They've focused on bringing more Indigenous people into the trades. C-SPAN has been really focused on solving this thorny problem. So I went on a tour there, and I met a gentleman who was a welder who was standing at a computer. No big helmet, no hanging upside down with the torch. He's doing this. So I talked to him about it. I said, what? And he said, yeah, I've got, I don't remember the number, but let's say 10 automatic welding machines that I'm overseeing right now. And these are using robotics and AI to solve a problem that's been long-standing. So does that mean that 9 people lost their jobs? It doesn't. What it means is they are able to do more of their book of work that they couldn't get to, that they actually couldn't address because they couldn't get enough welders to address it. It's driving work. It's expanding their ability to take work and jobs, right? AI is a game changer, and we've got extraordinary opportunities should we embrace it. We have one of the best tech sectors in the world right here in Vancouver. It's doubled since 2017. We've had the fastest growing tech sector 2 years running. And these are not my numbers. This is numbers from elsewhere. So, you know, I think the opportunities for us to really embrace technology and unlock opportunities within all types of the economy is absolutely huge. When you look at mining, the opportunities in mining for technology, extraordinary things are happening. Some of it even sounds like sci-fi. I don't know if you guys know Ideon Technologies. Do you guys know Ideon?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I'm not obviously a scientist, but I'll tell you what I understand that it's doing. They'll go on their website and get better information. But so there's an explosion in a star, right? And muons travel through space at a given speed. And down here on Earth, we can measure their travel, how quickly they travel, and how their speed changes as they travel through different densities of things. And when they come to Earth, you can track them to 2 kilometers down and what they're interacting with. And you can take that data, these free muons traveling through the world, to find out what is below the Earth's surface and use it to guide your drilling. I mean, that is extraordinary. This is a BC technology that can change the way that we do mining exploration. It's amazing.
It is amazing, and I've actually heard the story because I think they won an award through the World Trade Center, or they were nominated for one, can't remember, but it was fascinating technology, which maybe, you know, the link for technology and thinking about what you're grappling with the budget. I'll leave the deficit question for now because I think you said that, you know, there's a lot of different scenarios at play. But when I think about the work that was done in the previous budget, and the Board of Trade was one of the very loud advocates to change the threshold on the employer health tax, which was a great benefit. We didn't get all that we wanted, but it does really offer a huge benefit for small and medium businesses to see that change in the EHT. So when you're, and the budget now is, I imagine, almost pretty much done because it's about 5 weeks away. You know, are you thinking about incentives like in the technology sector around AI and around productivity? You know, what are some of the measures that you could speak about? Obviously, you're restricted in what you can talk about, what's in the budget, but you know, what's your approach then, given the very significant financial constraints around the largest deficit in history, in BC history, and the threat of external threats that we're facing?
Yeah, it's tough. I can't really speak about the budget, as you know.
Not in specifics. Robin.
I've been on a really accelerated timeline working on this budget, and I haven't been able to do all the work that I've wanted to do, and you know that the focus on the tech sector is work that I really want to do. 2026 is going to be a deep focus on innovation and how innovation can drive economy. There'll be some in this upcoming budget, 25, 26.
How do you approach the path that the government needs to get on around fiscal prudence and getting us back to a balanced budget, whether we're sitting at a $9 billion deficit or whether it's higher than that? You know, how do you think we're going to get back there?
You know, I have to tell you that it's on its way. And part of that is really having everyone understand the goal and all moving in the same direction. And the Premier driving on this is so important. Can't do it alone as a finance minister. The Premier's driving on it. And every mandate letter has guidance that people have to sharpen their pencils and look.
I've never seen economy in every mandate letter from an NDP government.
Yeah. No,
this is a big
This is a
shift.
big accomplishment. We're on our way.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think really understanding how important it is for people. You know, our government is a government that cares deeply about caring for people. And that doesn't happen when you have a weak economy. And I just don't believe this sort of old view that, what was the BC Liberals and was the NDP, these people care about business and these people care about people. I don't believe that. I believe you must have both together, and you must do well by economy in order to support people, and that's the way forward. So when I think about driving to balance in terms of a balanced budget, yes, but we're also driving to balance in terms of who we are as British Columbians. We want both of these things, and we want to succeed very well in both, and we can.
I would imagine, though, that the threat of tariffs puts all of this at risk in the short term.
Yeah, it adds a layer of complexity for sure. And economic modeling is really challenging in this huge uncertainty. But it also draws into sharp laser focus how important our economy is. People are talking about the economy in coffee shops. Like, what? That's good news for us because we need to, again, regardless if tariffs come in, I unfortunately think they will. But to have people really paying close attention to economic growth and to securing our economy, that's a good thing for us, for all of us who want to do this important work.
During the election, Premier Eby was on our stage and announced that there would be an ease of business review. Mm-hmm. You have just mentioned an efficiency review. Mm-hmm. Are they the same? Are they interconnected? And I recognize that the Premier has moved faster on the task force and some of the response to tariffs, but can we still expect to see this ease of business review?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, all of those things are happening. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of work going on right now. I also just want to take a moment to thank you for agreeing to be, I don't know if people know, but we have a group of business leaders, leaders from the Indigenous community, our partners there, leaders from Labour, who have stepped in to provide advice to government, and Bridget will be co-chairing that, and we're very, very grateful, so thank you to Bridget. We've also yesterday announced that we have more of an internal sort of figuring out impact of tariffs and how we address them in government that's being led by Ravi Kahlon, who's a very adept minister. So there's a lot of different responses happening in different ways. The efficiency review is largely an internal piece, but we're also going to be looking at ease of doing business, and that will happen in collaboration largely with the work that you're doing.
Great, and I imagine that permitting will be a big part of that, which is one of the questions there. It's gone, but it was about permitting, and you're talking about speeding up permitting, but how Indigenous consultation and DRIPA will factor into that. I think that there are a fair few people that would say, you don't want to throw the baby with the bathwater, for example. So how do you balance both needs to make permitting faster, but also to recognize the work that needs to be done?
Yeah. I had so many really good meetings at the recent First Nations leadership gathering, and there's tremendous leaders in that community that are very interested at looking at economic development for their communities. And we're working to make those opportunities more available through things like a equity fund that nations can use for financing their equity position and make investments that will then support their communities. So that work is happening. We're seeing a lot of economic activity being led by First Nations right now. It's pretty exciting, actually.
Okay. One of the things that I was out there talking to media about, they're saying, well, how is BC going to get to 3%? And I'm not pretending that we have all the answers. We're going to be asking all of you to be part of this process as well. Beyond speeding up permitting is getting projects built much faster. LNG Canada Phase 2 is one of those big ones that is a question mark at this point. So where is your government at in working with LNG Canada and being able to have, and LNG Canada Phase 1 comes on board in the next few months, my understanding is, but Phase 2 would create even more jobs and provide us more resiliency. So can you give any kind of thoughts about that process?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to share in regards to this one. I'm not very close to it. The work is being done within Minister Dix's ministry. I do know that some of the challenges, not just with LNG Canada too, but with a number of large industrial opportunities that we have, is securing the energy to do the work. And that's work that's going on right now with BC Hydro to really drive forward to make sure that we do have the energy that we're going to need. That's why you saw the call to power and the commitment to wind farms, getting them done very quickly. It's really a priority, and there's a lot of competing agendas that want that energy. So I don't, the Premier has a habit of giving Minister Dix the toughest jobs, and he's got one now.
We don't have a ton of time left, but I do want to pick up on the diversification conversations that have been happening in your comments when you were making your remarks. I had a meeting this week with the former governor of Washington State, Chris Gregoire, who is the chair of Challenge Seattle, and we were meeting to talk about more collaboration in the Cascadia region, which there is a lot of collaboration already, and certainly around innovation. You mentioned life sciences. I mean, that has been an area that we've talked about, and we've hosted folks from Cascadia. But there's a real opportunity there for the Pacific Northwest to collaborate more and to show unity at a time where we're not needing to just think about east-west connections, but also north-south. So what kind of efforts are going into that approach?
Yeah, that's been an identified area of strength for us and opportunity for growth for quite some time. And certainly the tech sector has been leading that for many, many years. The number of people that go back and forth on the, what do they call it, the brain train or the nerd bird. The nerd bird, it's a lot of people flowing back and forth, specialized visas to allow that to happen, great collaboration, huge opportunity there for continued growth, good discussions in regards to high-speed rail. The Cascadia corridor has many opportunities. How the potential or, in fact, real threat, real tariffs coming in could impact that is at play, of course. But we see amazing relationships, and I think that you'll see those collaborations even strengthening. Life sciences is a great example. There are many others. And I think that, I would just say that I have tremendous faith in entrepreneurs and business people to solve difficult problems. We've seen it again and again and again. So even if the tariffs do come in, I know that there will be, very thoughtful decisions made on how to find ways to collaborate in ways that we maybe haven't before. And some of the sharpest minds really are in this Cascadia region.
Last question back on the east-west connections. Eliminating interprovincial trade barriers would boost BC's GDP by over $7 billion. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, whether we're talking about the duplication on certifications or inspections or fees or paperwork. How much of a focus is this of your government right now?
Yeah, I think that's really primarily being led by the Council of the Federation, which the Premier has been a very, very active part of. It's an opportunity. I mean, whoever thought that Premier Eby and Doug Ford would be collaborating so closely and in step, right? These are interesting times, but the opportunity is so clear that it's important for us to be looking carefully at it. And I've spoken to people, from the beer industry, from the wine industry, who've told me, particularly in beer, that it is easier to sell to Singapore or Germany than it is to sell to Ontario. I mean, that just doesn't make sense. We can do better than that. So it is the low-hanging fruit, but it's also deeply complicated with literally hundreds of years of regulations. So It's not a small challenge, but now's the time.
And that's a great way to end the conversation. Now is the time. This is the catalyst that I think we could use to our such a significant advantage. We have a number of challenges that we have had long-standing in our province and in our country, and I really encourage the government and all of you in the room to work with government to find those solutions to better economic growth. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bridget.